Hello, my name is Zach Fuller, and I am an electrical engineering student at Brigham Young University, Idaho.
Hi, my name is Logan Mitchell. I am a web development major at Brigham Young University, Idaho, California.
Hi, I'm Gerald Tanner. I am a electrical engineering major at Brigham Young University in Idaho.
And tonight we are actually giving this presentation on a proposal to install solar roadways on the BYU Idaho campus. This presentation is more of a summary of our proposal document, and we'll be referring to several parts from there. We'll go ahead and turn the time over to Logan to get us started.
Excellent. So if you would just go to slide 2, what we're proposing is a new technology called solar roadways. And solar roadways are these hexagonal panels that you can see that contain a multitude of technologies. Primarily, as their name suggests, they are solar panels, and they are meant to be used as pavers on a roadway, parking lot, plaza, and structure. And so the other functionality that's built into these solar panels is heating, which would keep ice off the roads and melt snow on sidewalks and things like that. LED lights, which could be programmed to light up in a multitude of patterns, display text or warnings, flashing lights. You could change lane configurations, parking lot configurations. You could even have, a kind of cool lit up dance floor for some type of event. And so the purpose of these roadways then is the main purpose is to then generate energy. So our proposal is to use these solar panels to generate energy for some surrounding buildings. And if you proceed to the next slide, very basic diagram, but for those who don't understand how solar technology works, it literally soaks up the energy from the sun, converts it into electrical power that can either be used immediately or stored or even put back onto the grid, saving whoever's using it a lot of money. And it's also clean energy, so it doesn't have to use fossil fuels or nuclear energy or things like that to produce this valuable resource. If you move to the next slide with me, you'll see where we're proposing to do it. This is known as the Taylor Quad area of the BYU Idaho campus. It's over 45,000 square feet that we have highlighted there. This would be relatively level, flat walkway areas that could be converted to solar roadways rather easily and provide a large amount of output that could be then generated or passed off to the surrounding buildings to power their lighting or their computers or whatever else in that needs power in those buildings. So that's it for my section. I'm going to hand it over to the next presenter.
Thanks, that's me now. So if you'll move with me to the next slide, slide 5, I'm going to talk a little more about why we're proposing this. So the picture on slide 5 is a picture of BYU Idaho's on-site power generation facility. And BYU Idaho recently invested a substantial amount of money in renovating this building to where they have a natural gas-fired power plant right on campus. So it's obvious that BYU Idaho is interested in this idea of self-sufficient energy production, and this is another one of those reasons why we're proposing solar roadways as a supplement to BYU Idaho's energy independence. If you'll move now to slide number 6, additionally, the gas-powered power plant on the BYU Idaho campus is powered by natural gas. And natural gas, it sounds nice and clean, and it is cleaner than coal, but as you can see on this chart, depending on the generation technology, If you look at the natural gas bar, you can see that it is actually up there close to the coal range. So what it means is depending on how BYU Idaho is generating their energy, they could be emitting greenhouse gases and pollutants that are harmful to human health just by producing energy from this natural gas. So yes, natural gas is a lot better than coal, but the solar power that we're proposing for the solar roadways is substantially better. If you look at the bar representing the solar PV, which is the solar roadways, you see the top section is kind of a light yellow color. So that's a difference in generation technology. That big yellow block represents commercial solar production, which is where they have the big towers and reflective mirrors that they use. And those kind of generations can produce more greenhouse gases. But the solar roadways that we're proposing are represented by that little teeny tiny orange slice down at the bottom. So the purpose of this is just to show that solar roadways would be an incredibly clean energy source, and with so many students walking up and down around campus, it would be beneficial in that regard as well. If you move now to slide number 7, this is also interesting. Just another reason why we should invest in solar technology in Idaho. Lots of people think because it's Idaho that it must not be very good for solar technology. And it's true that Arizona, as you can see, the darker areas on this map are the stronger sunlight. But Idaho's latitude can produce up to 5.5 kilowatt hours per square meter per day. So what that means is, to put it in terms maybe that we could understand better, is 5.5 kilowatts is about how much energy it takes to run a wash cycle and then a dry cycle if you're washing and drying your clothes. So if you had 1 square meter of solar panels that was able to absorb all that 5.5 kilowatts in one day, you'd be able to run a wash cycle and a dry cycle off of just 1 solar panel from a day. And we're proposing the installation of 4,200 square meters of these solar roadways. So we're in the ballpark. What we're trying to say is that these solar roadways could produce enough energy to run 4,200 loads of laundry in just one day. So it's not as good as Arizona. Arizona could produce more. But what the point we want to get across is that Idaho has lots of solar energy still, and there's that vast potential there to be tapped into. If you move to the next slide, additionally, BYU Idaho has lots of snow in the winter, and they pay lots of money to have that snow removed by throwing salt onto the sidewalks, and then they plow that salt off when they plow them. And the right picture there, you'll see dead grass. Every spring on BYU Idaho campus, we see plenty of dead grass that came from the salts being plowed off of the sidewalks in efforts to melt the snow and ice, which comes in abundance in Rexburg. The solar roadways, as Logan mentioned, would be able to melt the snow and ice off of them without the need for maintenance crews, without the need for purchasing salts. And we estimated that in the ballpark of about $30,000 a year that BYU Idaho would save by not having to pay for maintenance crews and not having to pay for the replacement of all that grass along the sides. So that's another reason this is a great way to almost have a heated sidewalk wherever you have solar roadways produced. So we'll go ahead now and turn the presentation to Gerald to talk about a few things.
So every year, BYU Idaho maintains certain sections of the sidewalks. They do this by replacing anything that may need to be replaced, or by reconditioning some pieces of the concrete. Our plan is to put in the solar roadways during the next maintenance cycle for the Taylor Quad area. By doing this, it would help eliminate some of the overhead cost of basically doing it over again for no reason, since the concrete already has to be replaced. As you look at this chart, you can go down and we just have a estimated time of the demolition and site preparation for the ground, leveling it, getting the ground itself ready for the foundations and the base that is required for these solar roadways. After these are installed, the installation of the corridors for the cabling and for the drainage would have to be installed on the side of where the solar roadways will be mounted. After everything is installed and inspected for the base and the corridors, all the conduits would have to be ran and all the cabling to connect the solar panels together. Finally, the solar panels themselves can be installed and inspected by the qualified person, which we'll be covering later in this presentation. If everything goes well and everything gets installed correctly, we can then go to the configuration of the software. This software can be used to program the solar panels themselves to give certain designs, any instructions, any directions, or any other thing that you may want as you are continuing to walk down the sidewalk. Now, if you go on to the next slide, slide 10, we'll go into the evaluation. As talked about before with the inspections, these solar roadways will have to be inspected by certain agencies to make sure that they meet the code for the area. Some of these agencies that will be on site during the construction will be OSHA, Brigham Young University themselves, solar roadway staffs, or the NEC, National Electric Code. The electrical engineer and the electrical contractor would have to make sure that everything is installed for NEC code. That is a national electrical code for the state of Idaho for the most current year, which in this case would have to be 2014. During the construction phases, OSHA will be on site to make sure that all health and safety is being followed during this time of the construction site. Zach Fuller will schedule and oversee these inspections. If any adjustments need to be made while the construction process is in place, that will be added into the schedule to make sure that the site gets done in a timely fashion. And I will pass it off to Logan now for the budget.
Thank you, Gerald. So the budget, go to the next slide, you'll see there's a nice table there and there's lots of figures. I won't try to go over each of them, but I'll just say that this is a brand new technology. The processes are still being developed and refined, and so the initial costs are going to be high. The estimated budget for this project is about $3.3 million, but as Zach shared earlier, the benefits that will come from it, both in saved labor, in reduced risk and liability, in recovered energy production, and in potential events and advertising, things like that, the costs will be recovered over time. And so with an emerging technology like this, it's always a leap of faith. It's always taking biting that bullet the first time around, and and then realizing the benefits after the project has completed. Moving on from there, we're going to talk about how each one of us are qualified to do the different tasks that need to be done. And we're going to start with Zach.
So, in this project, I would be, I guess, what would be considered the project manager. I have lots of experience in managing teams and accomplishing engineering-related tasks, and my goal would be to keep it on schedule and keep it under the budget, and of course to stay in close contact with the university leaders and other university staff to make sure that things are going according to plan. So that would be my job as the project manager.
Great. And I would be the software developer. I'm a software developer by trade right now, as well as my schooling. And so I have the experience needed to learn a new software system, to be able to integrate it with the electronics, and learn from the solar roadways folks how to use the software. And then I could, in turn, as I have professionally, train the staff at BYU Idaho to operate the software, configure it, and alter the programming later.
Alan Eddington, who was unfortunately not able to make this meeting, would be the solar roadway technician who would be in charge of installing, wiring, and testing these solar panels. During this time, he would work closely with the solar roadway company to make sure that everything is on site in a timely manner and that everything gets installed correctly. I will be the electrician on the job site to ensure that everything is installed correctly for NEC, National Electric Code, for 2014. I am already a qualified licensed electrician in the state of Idaho, and I have had multiple years working around the area and working on BYU Idaho itself. If we move to the next slide, slide 13, it goes over the facilities and the equipment. Some of the facilities that we'd need access to would be the Taylor Quad itself, since it would be the construction site, the Taylor parking lot area for the staging ground for all of the equipment, job trailers, or any other deliveries, material that we would need on site during the construction process. The Kimball building would also need to have access to for the electrical room and the information technology department for the programming. During this time, we would be working with BYU Idaho under contract to use their rooms to help benefit the college and to make sure that everything is installed correctly. During the construction phases, to ensure that everything is done safely per OSHA standards, all of the construction site and staging areas would have to be fenced off so that no unauthorized personnel would have access to the area and accidentally get harmed or hurt in any other way. We move to the next slide, slide 14. We'll go over some of the basic materials and equipment that would be needed to complete this project. Some of these materials range from basic gravel fill and backfill around all the different conduits, the conduits themselves, and the wire that would be needed to connect all the different solar panels together. We would also need to have some basic electrical gear for this project as well. Seeing how the existing campus is all Square D, it's a Schneider Electric company, we would have to ensure that we have the correct panels and power link breakers for the existing panels on site to make sure that this gets wired correctly. From there, we would need different computer programming and computer software itself, as well as the solar panels that would be needed for this job. We would also have to have access to some of your basic equipment for the demolition and installation of the solar panels, as listed in the table on the right.
All right, thank you, Gerald. In conclusion, if you move to the next slide, uh, installing these solar roadways in the Taylor Quad is just the beginning of the potential it could have. Depending on the experience that BYU Idaho has with these solar roadways on the Taylor Quad, these could be installed in parking lots and in sidewalks and walkways all over the BYU Idaho campus. Having looked into it, we feel that it would be a wise investment for BYU Idaho, not only monetarily, but just in showing that we can make a difference in the world. Again, this has just been kind of a brief overview of our presentation. For a more in-depth proposal, please refer to the document that's included at the end of the slides. And thank you for watching this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.